is that time of year once again. Welcome everybody to Belgium, to Spa-Francorchamps and to the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa Round 3 of Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe powered by AWS Endurance Cup. Round 3 of Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli. There's a lot at stake because not only do we have those two championships going for points here, but of course there are within them different classes, and with a 70 car entry for the event itself, it is going to be a very spectacular race indeed. David Addison and John Watson are trackside, and it is, would you believe, looking at the pictures, a wet track. There's a little bit of rain that has started to fall over up at turn 9, over up at Bruxelles, and so race director Alain Adon has already put the wet track legend on the screen to warn drivers that it is just a little bit treacherous, or might be getting a little bit treacherous, up at the top of the circuit. This is pre-qualifying, which, of course, assuming the weather doesn't go against us later on tonight, won't affect the grid, but it's there just in case. It gives us a chance to have a look at the cars, to marvel in the circuit once more, to pick out some of the star names, because this is an entry list absolutely dripping with quality, and it also offers a chance for the first time this weekend to say hello to John Watson.
Good afternoon, or good evening, David. But you mentioned the weather. I mean, I suppose that's always a topic of conversation when you come to the 24 Hours of Spa, or any event at Spa. Hopefully, actually, I would love the rain or whatever it is they've made the track a wet track in aid of, would dry up and just disappear, because what I want to see are race cars, these fantastic GT3, all the manufacturers in the world here, ragging these things to the nth
yes.
degree, and certainly with the pro drivers, who are the ones that are going to be looking to top the timing and scoring. It's always worth the look. I mean, everywhere around the racetrack you look, okay, let's say La Source is more a corner of my age and speed, but thereafter, down through Eau Rouge, over the top of Radion, well, hang on, guys and gals. Got Aaron Dames here this weekend in their Lamborghini, having a great run a month or so earlier in a Porsche at Le Mans. So versatility certainly is one of their fortes. But just to see, here we're watching now, just coming down the hill out of La Source, picking up speed all the way down, and then you make the little turn to the left, and oh, why did I even bother trying to describe Eau Rouge?
The cars plunge downhill, climb Brady on the other side, and you can see how busy it is coming out of the chicane. Some go for the pit lane, and the only time that we have of the moment is that of Brendan Leach, but as I say, this shouldn't affect the grid. Now one or two more times cut through, including, if you follow supercars from Australia, Chaz Mostert, who is here to partner Kenny Habul and others in number 75. Because that is a car going for IGTC points, and Kenny Habul, Chaz Mostert, Martin Conrad and Nick Katzberg, winner of this event back in 2015. The drivers, Chaz Mostert particularly, is going to be one to watch. He's won the Supercar Bathurst, he's won the Pro-Am class of the GT3 12 Hours of Bathurst, he's won his class in the Daytona 24 Hours. He's going to be a man to watch. It's another Australian though, but now gone quickest, Jordan Love. Of course, there's going to be a lot of attention around that BMW. Valentino Rossi, who was on the podium at Brands Hatch in Sprint Cup, was on the podium in the Road to Le Mans race as well as a class winner. He's getting better all the time. Absolutely,
and what he did at Brands Hatch, I mean, it was a memorable weekend for lots of reasons. But one of those was the performance that Valentino Rossi put in to finish second in the second of the two sprint races. And to me, that was the point where I said to you, I think during the commentary, along with a lot of other rubbish, that car-driver combination appears to have come of age.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was followed up by the Road of Le Mans. I remember him passing a Porsche, I forget who was driving it, coming out of the S's down into Terre Rouge, and that looked like Valentino Rossi. It's all coming together for him. It's taken a year and a bit, and looking at him now up at the high part of the circuit through Lake Coombe.
I mean, the other element to bear in mind, pretty much anything he learnt last year, he has to do a bit of a reset because he's changed cars. You know, he's just about learnt car racing in an Audi, and then at the end of the season, oh, right, now we'll park that, we're off to BMW. So reset, different car, and operating perhaps in a different way.
Well, you asked me at Brands Hatch, John, where do you think Valentino Rossi can improve?
I did ask that.
And I gave a very short answer. I said everywhere. But it all began, for me, maybe because of the circumstances that Valentino found himself in when he was handed over the car. He maintained that second position, but it was a transitional period to me in the evolution and development of Valentino Rossi, former MotoGP world champion and whatever else, to becoming now a fully dialed in, signed up member of four-wheel racing.
I agree. It is Maxime Martin, the Belgian driver, who is at the wheel of that car at the moment, and it's one little feature, no doubt. 64 Mercedes there, which is the Haupt Racing Team car in the DK Engineering colours of James Cottingham. He is joined by Naveen Rao, by Frank Bird, and by Matt Bell, younger brother of McLaren factory driver Rob Bell. 157 Mercedes is the Winwood Racing car, the DTM team. Nicholas Bourne, David Schumacher, and Marius Zug, Ralf Schumacher's son, David Schumacher. And that car makes that long climb all the way up the Kemmel Straight up towards Les Combes now, with Nicholas Bourne at the wheel of it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Haupt Racing Team and James Cottingham. James has been doing, I think, extremely well in British GT.
Yeah.
And co-partnered with Johnny Adam in that particular form of GT racing, and looking to see what he can achieve here at Spa. He's raced here at Spa on numerous occasions, but this is a different league, I think, to any form of GT racing that James has yet to compete in. And I've been impressed again, because he's come in and he's an intelligent person. He's a very capable racing driver, and you put those two qualities together, normally you do get results.
Indeed, and he's been very successful here over the years within the 6-hour historic race that we have. Porsche fastest at the moment, Klaus Bachler. Nicholas Bourne, meantime, 43rd fastest, but it's early in the session, and times and indeed position don't really matter too much. And of course, one thing that this session is all about, as you see the Ferrari run wide there, is learning how to cope with the circuit in traffic, because from very early on in the race, come Saturday afternoon, traffic will be a factor, especially it's 70 cars on track.
Too early for me to have a rant. I've only just arrived an hour ago. But it's going to be a challenge for everybody on the circuit, a challenge for those in the pit lane, a challenge for race director, and probably a challenge for the stewards, because it's a large number of cars, and of those 70 cars, you've got maybe 20 or 25 of them that have got what I would call pro drivers, and the rest are made up of drivers of different gradings. And some of those gradings are not far off a pro, others are probably quite a long way off a pro. And how they're all going to manage, certainly in qualifying later this evening, is going to be, well, worth watching.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is qualifying tonight, just to pick up on John's point. Pre-qualifying now, they have a very short break, and then we go into that regular Endurance Cup format of qualifying, the 4 segments, because here, of course, you can have 4 drivers. Not in the pro class, that's only 3, but for the gold, silver and bronze classes, it's 4 drivers. So there are 4 segments to qualifying, and then after that there is the night practice session. We'll bring qualifying to you. Night practice really is headlight spotting, so we might go and get some sleep when that is happening. And then Super Pole is tomorrow afternoon, around about 3:30, and that is, of course, what will determine the top 20 on the grid.
Yes, and I would assume, but I'm not going to give a guarantee on it, but that top 20 shootout will be the pro car driver combinations. Yep. But you just might get a stray, well, you get a gold or a pro-am sneaking in, but most probably it'll be the pro drivers. And I mean, just looking at the times we've seen already, and we're only just over 10 minutes into the session, Klaus Bachler has already exceeded the time that was set earlier today when we had that first session. That time was set by Dan Harper in the BMW, and I think that was a pretty good effort. And it was basically supported by, in second place, an Audi. Just looking down at the timing and scoring, it was a BMW Audi. So,
yes.
But 2 minutes 18.1. I'm just trying to get my tongue around all this. It's been a long time since I've been in the booth, David. You know, it's 2 months almost since it's Brands Hatch.
It's nice to have you.
It's just funny how you get out of the rhythm and just got to get back in again. And you know, old habits die hard and all that.
John's been grand marshalling in Detroit, where you won a Grand Prix.
I did.
Your Grand Prix win, and you were a very welcome guest of honour.
That was a fantastic weekend. It's something to talk about in the wee dark hours of the morning, when all you see are headlights.
Or when we have a safety car. We might get the odd safety car.
I think you want to explain that, David, because at the earliest opportunity, because I don't understand it, and it's a new thinking.
Under the safety car, let me just quickly mention you're looking at Aurélien Panis in the Audi, but in safety car conditions, there is the new regulation for a wave by. And what this is going to do in the race doesn't obviously affect anything up to only the race, but if you are in bronze, silver or gold, in other words the classes, not pro, because effectively that's overall and isn't really a class in itself, but bronze, silver and gold, you are allowed to overtake the field and effectively therefore buy back a lap. Now if you're 3 laps down, hard luck, you've only bought back 1, but everybody will be allowed on the wave by, if you're a lap down, to get one of those lost laps back. And that's going to be really interesting when you look at some of those quick gold and silver class cars. If they are able periodically to get a lap back, how far up the order they could be come the end of the race. So what you'll see is that when the safety car has everybody under control, instructions will be given coming towards Blanchiment. They will go past the 2 elements of the pit lane, so all the teams know where their car is, and then up the Camel Straight, up here, cars would effectively go into 2 lines, those that stay behind the safety car and the line of wave-by cars that can go overtaking and then play catch-up.
So it's the pros that are having to suck it up, basically.
Yes.
And then everyone else will get the opportunity to, if they're 1 lap down, then they'll end up at the tail of the chain, but on the same lap as the race leader.
If they're only 1 lap down.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm talking about 1 lap. Obviously, if they're 5 or 10 or 20 laps down, then they only gain 1 lap.
Correct.
But that's, I tell you what an easy opportunity to make up a lap.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, you don't even have to break sweat.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out come the race itself and who it helps, and we'll be monitoring that as the race goes on. Let's monitor other cars, though, for the moment. Number 4, Mercedes, the CrowdStrike Racing by Riley entry. George Kurtz, Ian James, the expat Brit, Colin Braun and Felipe Fraga. George Kurtz, of course, is CrowdStrike, the event sponsor, huge motor racing enthusiast, and comes here having been a class winner within Pro-Am of LMP2 at Le Mans this year. So it's been a great season for him. Timo Boguslavski, aboard number 88 Mercedes. Let me throw something into the mix here for you, which happened a couple of years ago. It would not be a surprise if we didn't see Timo Boguslavski sit out the first 12 hours of the race. And I say that because you score points at the 6-hour mark and the 12-hour mark. And if Raffaele Marciello and Jules Gounon are faster than him, then it makes sense to give them the driving chores for the first chunk of the race to make sure they're as well up as possible to score the points. And then you put Timo Boguslavski in for quite a long period of time after midnight.
David, you are sounding the most cynical person. You should be a team manager instead of being a broadcaster, which you do extremely well. But that's the kind of thinking that obviously people are going to. I mean, in the case of Jules Gounon and Raffaele Marciello, I mean, 2 of the hottest guys in GT racing in the world. I would hate to say which of the 2 has been more successful. Probably Jules Gounon in terms of out-and-out long-distance results. But when put them together, they're absolutely just unbelievable. Now, if the team did that, that's going to then put a huge load of responsibility on Timo Boguslavski, because he's got to do a minimum of 6 or 8 hours or whatever.
I think it's a minimum of 6. I mean, they might put him in for an hour, but to allow the drive time to work for the other 2. But my point is that you to maximise championship points, you want your faster drivers in. Of course, IGTC, Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli, has just 1 set of points, and that's at the race end. That's easy. For our purposes, for Fanatec GT Endurance Cup, 6-hour positions, 12-hour positions and 24-hour positions, you bank points.
And again, the unknown factor, I mean, you may sit down and have your plan and say, let's go with what you've just decided or thought. But then there are elements at Spa which are unique to the circuit. You know, the event itself, 70 cars, that's a lot of cars to be managed, and have a sort of a minimum of contacts or incidents. But usually it's the weather factor that can be the dominant factor. So you have to then, once you've made your plan, you have to build in flexibility and adjustability. And we've seen it in the past, we've had maybe an hour or longer, where running under a full course yellow or safety car, whichever, if you could manage to get your hot rod in and put in the person that was there as your night watchman, let's put it that way, in cricketing terms. Test matches on right now, by the way, anybody interested? I'd love to know what the score is. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to mean that the amount of work that's going to go on behind the racetrack, behind the pit wall, is going to be even greater.
Another team that's got an awful lot on its plate this weekend is the team at Pirelli. 156 people for Pirelli are here. Admittedly, they're also looking after the cars in GT4 and other championships, but it's still an absolutely mammoth operation. 30 sets of slick tyres, plus an extra set if you qualify for Super Pole. There's no restriction on the number of wets, but 30 sets of tyres they've got to manage over the course of the weekend, and of course that includes the race, but my point being that you've got free practice, pre-qualifying, qualifying, your bonus set for Super Pole, and 24 hours of racing out of that 30-strong set.
So two things. Make sure your drivers don't lock up one front wheel or whatever.
Yeah.
Secondly, make sure your drivers don't run off track and maybe cut a tyre down. And thirdly, don't go for a closing gap and maybe end up flat spotting all four tyres or even trashing, you know. So it's not quite just the simple thing of managing your tyres, there's a lot more to it. There's the 63 Lamborghini and that familiar, I was going to say that's the Iron Lynx car. In fact, it's Andrea Caldarelli, George Pepper, Mirko Bortolotti, and that car was slightly further up. It's in its fifth position, just popped up into fifth place. Mirko Bortolotti spending his time driving in DTM in Germany, but great to see him back in a Lamborghini because he has always been one of my, well, I'm not my favourites, but he's been a crowd favourite,
yeah, because
he brings passion and emotion to his driving.
He's no mean broadcaster either. He often joins for Lamborghini World Final and has become quite proficient because he knows what he's doing behind the wheel and then translates that from behind a microphone. Fifth fastest then.
David, do you think that when the day comes, there's going to be a day coming where I will have to hang up the microphone? I've no idea when that day might be, but if Mirko could dovetail, would he be a suitable replacement? Or would he be a no-brainer replacement?
I think, well, John, I think you're irreplaceable. So he would be a valiant sub. How about that? He's very, very quick behind the wheel of a racing car, and I don't think we want to prize him out of being a GT racer for a good amount of time, do we? See how busy it is getting up towards the Les Combes sequence. There, number 71 Ferrari. Now, this is another potential winner, isn't it? Because this car that comes out of the AF Corsa stable under the Francorchamps Motors banner, Antonio Fuoco, Davide Rigon, Daniel Serra. That could win it. Yeah,
Davide Rigon behind the wheel right now.
Right.
So that car has, well, it's in 22nd overall, 2 minutes 19.7. So that's a pretty, I would say, baseline time for that team, that driver or whatever. But expect to see the Ferraris further up. And I think this car, I just love the look of it, particularly when you see the car goes out of a camera in the rear. It reminds me of a Ferrari from the 60s, a 250 LM, the same car that Jochen Rindt and Maston Gregory, and maybe a third driver but never acknowledged, won 24 Hours of Le Mans in a 1965. It's just a facsimile of that car.
Well, it is currently, as you say, 22nd fastest, Davide Rigon. The car that he's chasing on the road is the one that's fastest in the times. Alex Malikin there in the Herbert Motorsport Porsche. He's done a 2:17.9, that car, number 911. Sorry, the pure racing Porsche, I should say, not the Herbert car. Alex Malikin, Joel Sturm, Marco Seefried and Klaus Bachler. Now, that's a bronze car, but Marco Seefried and Klaus Bachler, very, very quick drivers, so that could be on for a, not just a class win, but a very good result overall. And Alex Malikin, who's not raced for that long, only a couple of seasons, has been a very, very rapid peddler indeed. Davide Rigon gets through the traffic, comes into the chicane, and pits, having done all of that. So the new Ferrari 296 down the pit road now.
I mean, I know he was on an in-lap, but just watching the way the Ferrari sort of crawled over the curb, it doesn't look as if it's a car that's going to be deflected. It seems to absorb the curbing in a way where some cars are very twitchy and nervy if you go near a curb. Ferrari looks like it's very user-friendly if you want to go, you know, curb hopping and whatever else, as the Porsche comes up through Radion and all the way down the long Camel Straight. Actually, it's a climb up Camel Straight. I mean, David, you ran it last night.
Did.
I told you you should run it counterclockwise. You should have run down the Camel Straight instead of having to run up the thing.
Yeah, but I'd then have to run up from Pouin all the way up to this section.
Yeah,
of
but
the
you have to
section.
lift for Blanchimont. You have to lift coming into the chicane.
Fair point. But I was absolutely spot on with my track limits because I've been threatened by the timekeepers that if I did transgress, they'd make me do another lap. So I was absolutely spot on. This is Adrian Delina in 56 Porsche, which is part of the Dynamic GT Huber Racing stable. He shares the car with Yacht Raponge, Tenant Safran-Tirancourt and Daniele Diamato. And that's going to be a rapid car, I would have thought, within the silver category. Adrian Delina, very experienced driver these days. There's another competitive car, the Rover Racing BMW that won at Monza. This is the car in the hands of Philipp Eng, of Marco Wittmann and Nick Yellerly. Philipp Eng, twice a winner of this event, and he's the man behind the wheel, the Austrian.
Yeah, presently, and that's really all that matters, is presently in 8th quickest. So Christopher Hauser one up above him in the Audi in 7th. And then number 3, the Mercedes of, I'm just trying to get, where am I looking? Alex Peroni, sorry. So where did that come from?
Yeah, that's...
In fact, he's just been, that's all gone. The Alessandro Pierguidi's gone second, Laurent Van Thor's gone third. So everything's changed in the space of trying to get it all out in a coherent fashion. So that's how quickly things are changing.
I think also what adds to the changes is that we have a number of people losing lap times because of track limit abuses. So the lap times are being cancelled where people transgress. Philipp Eng, 9th fastest then. As I say, this is the car that won at Monza. And BMW has a very, very good strike rate at Spa. In terms of track limits, the FIA rule is in place, which is that you can't go over the white line with all 4 wheels. And there are judges of fact at 2 corners to make sure that that is being adhered to. But also, there is this electronic system. And so effectively a field is placed around the circuit as a boundary. If a car breaks that boundary, a photograph is taken by the cameras. That is then sent automatically to race control. It's reviewed and a penalty comes if appropriate. Bear in mind, when we get to the race, you are allowed, in quotes, 6 offences. On your 6th offence, there is a 30-second penalty applied at your next pit stop. Then it resets, but on your next 6th, and it's to the car, not the driver.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get it out. It's the car, not the driver.
Yeah, on the car's next 6th, if you follow me, then it becomes a drive-through penalty, and it gets ever more severe the more of those 6 offences you do. But on the 6-hour mark, or every 6 hours, 6 hour, 12, 18, it resets.
I mean, what is the biggest penalty you can get for that level of transgression? I mean, could you be suspended?
I think you could end up with a stop-go penalty of minutes, couldn't you? Like, I mean, if you are a regular offender, if you've accrued so many, you could, for example, be benched 5-minute stop-go penalty. It's up to the stewards; they will decide. But because of the length of the pit lane, that drive-through is pretty serious, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you know, it would be an interesting experiment. It would probably be very unfair. The people in the top pit lane would gain an advantage if the top pit lane were allowed to exit the pit lane from the inside of La Source, and then all the others had to exit from Eau Rouge. But it wouldn't work because I mean, the people in the top pit lane would gain a huge advantage.
It also wouldn't work because where they're coming out, the people in the bottom pits would be coming in, and it would be a sort of figure of 8.
It would be an
accident.
interesting. But you know, listen, in Detroit, we had a parallel pit lane.
Okay.
And 2 sides of the pit lane, you'd pit boxes.
Right.
So they converged at a single exit. So it actually worked extremely well. There was no collisions, and everybody actually understood that there's no point being a thicko about it. You know.
That's a technical term, John.
David, I've got myself into trouble of saying a thicko. I'll take that back. Anybody who's a thicko, I apologise.
Well, there's me. There, number 92. This is another car that I think we need to keep an eye on for a win. It is the Manthey EMA Porsche of Julien Andlauer, who is behind the wheel. Laurens Van Thor, Kevin Estre. It gets better and better and better. Very, very distinctive. It's also a car that's here for IGTC points. You can tell the IGTC cars because they have a white Fanatec windscreen strip, but in that kind of Manthey grello, livery, the green-yellow livery. I'd be surprised if that car weren't fighting for a race win, especially if it rains, because the Porsches always go well in the wet.
Yeah, but what I'm wanting to see is Laurens van Voor back behind the wheel of a Porsche, and younger brother Dries van Voor behind the wheel of his BMW. And those brothers, they don't give one another an inch.
No.
And what's backed off?
Red flag, that's why. We've had a stoppage. Yes, I mean, the point you made, they came to blows in the Nürburgring 24 hours, didn't they? And it was Laurens van Voor that tried to hang on to his place and went off into the barrier, and that was it. That Porsche was out of the race. He was very embarrassed about it, but it happened.
Sibling love.
Yes, or lack of. Right, keep your eyes peeled. It's interesting, actually, that the dash of the car that we were on board with had full course yellow legend, but we have gone red flag, as you can see.
Yes. So we are going round slowly behind the wheel of Laurens van Voor in the Porsche, and we don't know the reason why we've got this red flag, whether it's just simply a car has pulled off in a hazardous area, or whether there's been something of a different nature.
You did see it flashing red, in fairness, so the effectively what you have is an in-car marshalling system, so the flag signals, if you have a full course yellow or a red or a green, they are relayed around the circuit, but also on the dash of the car, so the driver has absolutely no excuse to say, oh, sorry Gov, didn't see them. Yes, you did, they're right there in front of you.
Funny, you've got that in front of you. Look at the wiper, where it's positioned in the Porsche, right in your eye line. But sitting behind the wheel, you don't see that wiper because your vision is so far down. And again, it's the adrenaline rush, what it does to your eyesight. It just sharpens up every sort of sense in your body, and in particular, so you don't even see the wiper. It's only if you refocus and sort of almost go cross-eyed that you'll see the wiper there. So therefore, sometimes you don't actually pick up information on the dash.
Okay.
But although we can see it on board, it's as clear as gin, or in your case, Belgian beer.
Yes.
Oh.
Now that's part of the reason for the stoppage. Somebody has had a drama. It might only be as much as lots of gravel on the road, because I can't see a car there. Maybe somebody went off and has got going again.
Yeah.
So the car that ran wide has survived, but dragged gravel onto the circuit, which therefore was catching out other people. So just to make the circuit safe, we have this red flag. And because it is pre-qualifying, not qualifying, the clock carries on ticking. And you can see how busy pit lane comes next. The new grandstand that's in at the chicane. Can't call it the bus stop anymore. Even Spa have given up calling it the bus stop. It is the chicane, pure and simple. It's so different from the old chicane.
The bus stop chicane was totally different to what the chicane here is. So actually carrying the bus stop insignia with it, sort of, well, you know, that's what people just got accustomed to saying. Oh, the bus stop chicane, but it is a chicane. Yeah. And the purpose of the chicane is to give another overtaking area on the racetrack, slow everybody down coming past the pits. Instead of coming, if you'd come from Blanchimont all the way up through and there wasn't a chicane, the cars would be going quicker here than they do up the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah. It's also an interesting chicane in as much as it tightens on itself through the first bit, and it also climbs. I mean, I'm not talking Kemmel Straight, Radion type climb, but it's still slightly elevated as you go through it and then get onto the pit straight. So there, the marshals sorting out the gravel.
Nice to see the gravel is actually loose gravel, and it's not gravel that's been compacted with all the rain that's fallen.
Now, let us hear from matters in the pit lane. Let's hear from some of the drivers with Gemma Scott.
Yep, we were just having a bit of a chat here about the predictions for the weekend and what you're expecting, and you were saying you're just praying not to have too much rain.
Yeah, the rain is hard in this track, especially with the visibility. So I hope it will be sunny, of course, and especially rain in the night. Yeah, it's not my favorite. So hope it will be dry.
They're talking about the possibility of storms throughout qualifying tonight, which will make it very interesting and mix up things in the race with 71 cars on the start line.
Yeah, that's true. It will mix up quite a lot. Now we are quite good in the rain. In a test it was raining, so we have a baseline. I'm happy with that, but still no I hope the podium with the rain. We are quick, so we will see.
But we'll stay here and do a bit of a sunshine dance.
Yeah, the sunshine is always better.
Thank you very much, Job. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Gemma, thanks. Job Rapponge, who we first came into contact with a couple of seasons back in GT4, going nicely in GT3 trim now. There is number 32 BMW, Charles Weerts, Dries van Thor, and Sheldon van der Linde. And that is another potential winning car. Charles Weerts has brought it into the pit lane. Session will restart on short notice. In other words, the race director can quickly give a green flag. You'll see in this replay the yellow Mercedes there. Is that the Cottingham car? Bounces through the gravel, avoids anything solid, but brings quite a bit of gravel onto the road. And that was catching out one or two others as they came through Speaker's Corner. It's not the Cottingham Mercedes, apologies, but that was the incident in question. Right, last year's winners, Raffaele Marciello, Jules Gounon, are with Timo Boguslavski, and they could be on for another victory. Let's hear the thoughts of Jules Gounon with Amanda Busick.
Well, 1 year ago here at Spa, there was epic celebration coming as the 88 won overall in the race. And Joel, I want to go back to a year ago. Take us back to that moment for you and Danny and Raffaello.
Yeah, it's always a great moment. It's the same pit box than last year, so I still remember jumping around and having the feeling that to have won the biggest GT race in the world, it's always a special feeling. So it was an amazing feeling, but we are back here. And nothing is done, so now we have to work again and try to go for it again.
Raffaele behind the wheel currently. I saw you give a thumbs up, thumbs down. What did you get from him?
Yeah, let's see. We are a bit struggling at the moment. Let's see. Lelo was on new tires. We got red flag, but yeah, we are working hard on the car to see what we can improve, and we will see where we are after that.
Last year, I think it was pretty special. We actually didn't see any weather here at Spa for one of the first times, I think. An approach of what might happen this weekend. What are you expecting on weather?
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be a bit more like Spa weather. So I guess around at night with fog, rain, poor visibility, well, everything we love. So I expect a bit more of that, but the weather is changing every day. So, you know, we don't really know what's gonna happen, but for sure, normally every year there is a bit of rain. I remember in addition in 2020 at night was really tricky, only one dry line. So when you overtake slower cars on the wet with slicks, it's always difficult. So we'll try to survive and hopefully we pass through the night and then we can push flat out to try to go for it.
Thank you.
So Jules Gounon walks away, winner last year. And the weather we have is dry and warm weather. The clouds looking ever more leaden, but in fairness, we've had leaden clouds for quite a bit of the day. Now, this red flag remains, so we're down to just under 26 minutes of the session. It will restart, as I say, on short notice. Now, in fact, the green flag is shown. We are back live, and there's this mad scramble to get on track and maximise the remaining time.
And I mean, just listening to Jules Gounon saying that Lelo, or Raffaele Marciello, to those that don't know him by his pet name, had just gone out on a new set of rubber. So that's taken the initial gain on that outlap, then back in again. And so this is the frustration of an event where you've got such a large number of cars. Now, we don't know that, I think you identified the car as a yellow Mercedes, so you can sort of work backwards from that. I mean, how many times are people going to run wide, coming down the hill? It used to be called the corner with no name, is now the Jackie X curb or something.
Yeah. I still call it Speaker's Corner.
Speaker's Corner. There's so many names.
I grew up.
There's the car that had just gone out on a brand new set of Pirelli skins, and hopefully had gone out to try and get a baseline in preparation for qualifying this evening. So that's all been put in the back foot. So they're going to sit it out for maybe another 5 minutes. Let the mad charge that's been at the bottom of the pit lane down at Eau Rouge, let them all go, and then once things settle down, then Marciello can have another look. But we don't know what's going to happen between now and then. Anything could happen.
Which pit lane, if John Watson Racing were here running Porsches or whatever you would run, which pit lane would you rather be in?
I would always prefer to be on the higher level, because when it does rain, there's a river here runs through this pit lane. It's called the Eau de la Source.
Right.
And it's just like a torrent runs on. Whereas if you're up on the high pit lane, but it's the Formula One pits, it's it's not quite, there's a slight incline, but it's nothing like the decline. So I've just simply, for reasons of having not to walk around in a pair of galoshes, prefer to be in the higher pit lane.
Right, we're back live then with the session, and you can see an awful lot of drivers on their toes. Lights are flashing as they try and battle through the traffic. 998 there is the second of the Rover BMWs of Dan Harper, Neil Verhagen and Max Hesse. Dan Harper, winner in British GT already this year, and a very, very accomplished driver, former Carrera Cup GB champion. Neil Verhagen, who came out of single-seater racing as a BMW junior. They're all now factory drivers, not just juniors, but fully fledged factory drivers. Neil Verhagen is the man behind the wheel of that car, and it is to be found 20th right now.
I'm just looking through the timing and scoring. 18th is the lead Ferrari. Young Robert Schwartzman behind the wheel. Ferrari Formula One star of the future, third driver, whatever. And it's such a different world.
It is. Formula 2 champion, wasn't he? Number 30 BMW. Quick word about this car, because Callum Williams went off the... Nicholas Cruton went off the road this morning on his first flying lap in the free practice session, and that did fall them for the whole session. So the first mileage the car has done is this.
And he can't claim it was wet.
No, indeed. It was a very early red flag, and Nicholas Cruton, who is no dummy, I mean, he's a race winner in the German GT Championship, for example, somewhat embarrassed about it, but it's been a big, big task with steering damage, with left-hand side bodywork damage to get that car back up and running. So they're coming into this session a bit on the back foot, having lost the track time this morning.
Well, listen, how often have you got to repeat the story? It's a 24-hour event. Ideally, you want to get the maximum amount of time out of the sessions that are available. And I mean, on the first lap, I think that's maybe inexperience, maybe got caught by something we didn't see, we just saw the consequence. For the team, I would think they would feel that was Team WRT. A bit disappointing.
So they bounce back, and Nicholas Cruton, I'm sure, will be eager to make amends. He's got the Porsche from the Dynamic Huber team tucked up behind. There's the sister car, and there is the one that is fastest. And Alex Malikin for Pure Racing, doing the bulk of the driving here. Come back to the fact that's a good, strong lineup there, and it's categorised in bronze.
So the time that the 911 number 911 was set very early in the session. On its second lap, it's now completed. It's on its 10th lap of the stint so far, and nobody's really challenged that time. There's only one car in the session to date that's got below a 2-minute 18-second lap.
So that's Pouon with the extra Formula 1 style runoff on the outside before you get to the gravel. This is the run up towards the Pith Path. Porsche looking a little bit twitchy under braking. Still fascinating to see how Porsches have got bigger and bigger and bigger over the years, isn't it? From that very first 911, they are longer, they're wider, but still easily recognisable as a 911.
I'll tell you when I get mine in October.
I might come and visit. You can take me around the block. Right, with their 188, which is another of the Garage 59 run McLarens, the car of Louis Pret, Miguel Ramos, Conrad Grunewald and Enrique Chavez. That's another bronze car. Treble 7 Mercedes. This could be a dark horse for a win. Lucas Auer, Lukas Stolz, Fabian Schiller, all Mercedes experts.
I like that. I think they've got all the makings of being what you might describe as a sleeper. I mean, they have got pace behind the wheel, but maybe not quite at the level of the top, maybe half a dozen. But winning a 24-hour race is not about being quick in the first hour. Well, we've said it every year I come here. It's about being quick throughout and not making errors.
And those errors are as much on track as in the pit lane. And what's been interesting this evening in this session is how many messages have come up from the stewards summoning people to race control to talk about pit lane speeding. Now, okay, you might lose a lap time, you might lose some money in this session, but do it in the race and a penalty comes. Keeping out of trouble, whether it's avoiding contact, avoiding gravel, avoiding track limit dramas, avoiding pit lane speeding offences. I know it's another cliche, but it's true. The amount of time you spend in the pit lane is going to be absolutely critical to the outcome of the race. And the less time you're in the pits and you're on track, the better.
Yeah, I mean, I just wonder whether teams are testing their individual limiters.
Maybe,
To
yeah.
see just,
Good thought.
because obviously it doesn't matter what they do here. Okay, if they do it too frequently, then maybe there will be a penalty. But it's a way of them, again, up at, is that the same Mercedes?
It might be. It's the same corner, certainly, and it's had a spin.
And it's yellow.
And it could be the same Mercedes. Either way, that ain't easily going to be driven out of there, I wouldn't have thought. And it is, I fear, going to be a red flag again. It is red flag. And you can see the gravel all over the road.
Yeah.
But if this were the race, then we'd be looking at a full course yellow or a safety car, possibly both, to get that out of the way. Because normally the race director will do full course yellow to slow everybody down immediately, calm the race down, and then negotiate his way into the safety car procedure. But a second red flag.
18 minutes of the session remaining. So it's going to take the length of time it takes to get a recovery vehicle to pull the car from the gravel, and then whatever gravel that has been dragged on to the racetrack. Maybe not as much as the previous occasion, because the car is actually embedded in the gravel. So hopefully when the car is, and I think is that a recovery vehicle just sneaking down the inside just to the left of picture to these Mercedes and McLaren as they come down. It's a safety vehicle of sorts.
Yeah.
I think it's a snatch vehicle.
That McLaren we were looking at a moment ago, Enrico Chavez at the wheel, second at the end of his lap just before the red flag came out. Now, this is a former International GT Open champion, Pro-Am winner in sprint in Fanatec GT last year, ex-Formula Renault racer. And Enrico Chavez then is the man second in the times. It is 64 then that is in the gravel. That is the James Cottingham and friends Mercedes. And I'm hunting quickly to try to see who we've got behind the wheel of that car, number 64, and it is Naveen Rao who has dropped it. So Naveen Rao off the road, and therefore the recovery vehicle, as John had identified, is there. And Naveen Rao, who's come out of the Ferrari Challenge America, he's raced in prototypes in the States, he's raced in the Asian Le Mans Series, new to Spa, and he's got some damage on the front.
There is damage. The car has nosed itself into the barriers. And you can see that the right front, look at the grille. I mean, that's not how it came out of the Mercedes showroom.
No, you're right.
And a lot of damage around the bodywork, carbon fiber on that right-hand side. Whether there's any deeper damage under the bodywork, I suspect not a lot, because they make them tough down in Stuttgart. And I'm talking about Mercedes.
Yes.
So the bodywork is impressive. What's even more impressive is the way it's all modular, and it just comes in big bits and pieces. And can be removed quickly, and hopefully the bits behind all that are not maybe suffering the damage that some other brands might be more liable to.
You just seen Louis Machiels coming into the pit lane. His son is joining him in 52 Ferrari, Jeff Machiels, this year. Jeff is with Gemma Scott.
Jeff, as a Belgian driver coming here to Spa for the first time, is wonderful experience for you and very exciting, but also the fact that you're driving this weekend with your dad as well. What an incredible weekend you've got lined up.
Yeah, I'm very happy that I can drive together with my father. Very excited, but it's going to be hard, but we will try to get the best out of it. And I think we have the good speed, so maybe we can fight for a podium like last year. My father did together with Andrea Bertolini. I would be happy if we could get a podium together again.
Absolutely, it'll be a wonderful experience. I wish you the best of luck. Enjoy your first Spa 24. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff Machiels, who has come out of karts and then single-seaters, drove in the UAE Formula 4 Championship and then the Italian F4 Series last year. Valentino Rossi takes guidance from Maxime Martin and makes sure his overalls are comfy, and then hops into the car. So in gets the doctor. Right, so we've heard from Gemma. Amanda has gone in search of our event sponsor, George Kurtz. The man behind CrowdStrike is in the pit lane. Let's hear from Amanda and George right now.
George, David Addison and John Watson in the booth have just been singing your praises and listing your accolades here. And just for you, walking into this place, it is the CrowdStrike 24 hours of Spa. How cool is that for you?
It's so cool. We couldn't be prouder. It's a great venue for us, and to have our name associated with such a prestigious race, it's great for all the CrowdStrikers, and it's great for racing. So pleasure to be here.
Thank you, George.
So it's good to have George on the grid. He was here last year and liked what he saw, and was a sort of partner of the event, subsidiary sponsor. But this year it's naming rights to CrowdStrike, and we're very grateful for the support of the company and their team, of course, also Riley, with a car as well. There's more damage done to that Mercedes than one would have first imagined.
The tyre barrier on the outside of the corner, from what we can see, doesn't appear to have been sort of removed or damaged. So where that occurred, I don't know. The car ended up obviously in the gravel at the middle exit of Speaker's Corner, Jackie's Curve, whatever you want to call it. So how the damage got to the front, but more likely how the damage got to that right rear, is something that would be, for me, certainly interesting to have a look. And it's twice that car has been off at that part of the racetrack in this session. So I suppose one might say it's got continuity.
Well, it's disappointing for the team, but hopefully Naveen Rao now knows a little more of Spa, where to push and how to treat that corner. And again, you think, oh, they've got all of this track time, free practice, pre-qualifying, qualifying, all this mileage before the race. But then you divide that over 4 drivers in the majority of cars. And of course, when you do have stoppages like this, you're losing the time. So there's a relatively small number of laps that people are going to get in advance.
Well, because a number of these cars, and principally the non-pro cars, pro cars are only permitted 3 drivers for the 24 hours. Every other category can have up to 4. So you've got 4 drivers. So how do you divide the time equally between all 4 to give them a shot in dry conditions? So 4 into 60 to me is 15, but it doesn't work like that because you've got stoppages.
Yeah.
Is somebody going to lose out? Well, I think the team is going to lose out, let alone individuals within the team.
Let's just rejoin Gemma in the pit lane before we get back underway. She has found Gerhard Travasa, who is part of the GRT Grasser Racing team. Gemma.
Gerhard, it's been a while since you've raced here in Spa. Your last race was 2019. You've just got out of the car. What's it like out there?
Yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, so many cars, really high competition. For me, it's really great to be here. I got the call last week on Wednesday, so really last time. And I said immediately, yes, I will come, and I'm really happy that I'm here and support my teammates. Normally they drive with 3, now we are 4 because of the long race, and I hope I can support them and help them to win the silver class.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much. Enjoy it.
Thank you, I will. Thanks.
Gerhard.
Gerhard Travasa, who for many, many years has been a mainstay of Lamborghini Super Trofeo racing, but in the mists of time was a very rapid driver in the Austrian Formula 3 Championship. We're still under the red flag as things are attended to. New boots go on to Philip Eng's Rover Racing BMW. We've also been praising Alex Malikin, saying how well he was going. Well, he is still in the car that's fastest, and Alex is now in the company of Amanda.
Well, this guy on property has currently set the fastest lap around Spa here as we kick off pre-qualifying. And just thinking of what's gone so right with this Porsche so far, where do you find it?
We're happy with our performance in this moment. Need to be more smart in the last minutes before quali. Need no damage car because no time to repair if you crash. But our race pace is very good, and in the quali, I think we will be strong. Weather is random, but it's cool. This is Spa-Francorchamps. We wait for this and ready. So, all good.
Nice job, Alex.
So Alex Malikin then, after a good effort earlier on, at the time the car did 2:17.9. The best time we had this morning, a 2:18.1. So we've dipped below that as a little bit more Pirelli rubber has gone down. 78 there, the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini ready to go back out with the combination of Bashar Mardini, Rob Collard, Patrick Kujala and Dennis Lind.
Oh, Dennis Lind. Bring on the rain. Dennis Lind. Unbelievable. Just something else. I've just had a quick look at timing and scoring. Top 5 cars, 3 of them are McLaren.
Interesting.
We don't get to say that too frequently, but it's interesting that 2nd and 3rd McLarens, and in 5th place Charlie Fagg, also McLaren bound.
Yeah, Charlie Fagg, who we got used to seeing doing great things in GT4 a couple of years ago, is with Dean McDonald, Tom Gamble and Sam DeHaan in the Optimum Motorsport run car. Many of whom, if not all, fall under the Edge management company, run by racer broadcaster Phil Glue, and there is number 5 McLaren, Baz Lynd as the team manager. Well, of course, he has been masterminding Mark VDS wins here many years ago. Charlie Fagg, very quick British driver, so that's a car to watch. In fact, so many are cars to watch. That's the beauty of this race.
Yeah, I mean, the top 20, the shootout tomorrow evening, I mean, that's always going to be an absolute must view, because although the cars will be running individually, you will get to see them running absolutely at the limit of their performance. And what we'll see in qualifying in the 4 segments that we're going to see later this evening, again, you're going to have 70 cars out in a very short period of time, trying not to end up running off track, or trying not to flat spot a tire, just to get that one final flying lap that's going to make a difference to your potential grid position.
Now the session has but 8 more minutes to go, and the point Alex Malikin was making about not much time if things go wrong, because we get into qualifying in really only a couple of hours' time after this. Pre-qualifying ends at 7:10, and at 9:20 we are in business for qualifying, or the build-up to qualifying, so they haven't got much time if things go wrong to put them right.
Just, I mean, again, just everybody has gone out at the same time, and it's the usual traffic jam, people trying to find a way around a car that's maybe just driving itself back up to speed. It's Jonathan Wee, the Sky Tempesta, McLaren looking to find a way around the Porsche, and is going to have to be patient, because this is the lowest part of the racetrack, exiting up through Paul Frere Cobe, and then coming onto the second quickest part of the circuit, the climb up the hill through these right sequence of then the double left. The first part of Longchamp is an easy flat. It's not even like, oh, corner off, somebody's off big time into the barriers at the top of Radion.
75 Mercedes then, which is the Martin Conrad, Kenny Habul, Chaz Mostert, Nick Katzberg Mercedes. Driver quickly out of the car, but winded, understandably. It's Kenny Habul, the charismatic Australian, behind the wheel of it, and that's clearly a big impact, and I fear we could be heading for another red flag there, because that car ain't going to drive away, is it?
No, that's going to, well, I don't want to prejudge what the race director might do, but I suspect we'll see another red flag, and Kenny Habul got out of the car, and you pointed out, David, he did look as if he was winded.
And it's a red, and that, I would imagine, is the end of the session with 6 minutes to go. I can't imagine it's going to be restarted. Let's hope Kenny Habul is okay. He's a tough cookie, and he's put together a great team of drivers. He's imported quite a lot of media attention as well. Those of you that have been involved in any capacity in Australian motorsport will know the redoubtable Brett Murray, who's known as Crusher, PR impresario extraordinaire, and he is here looking after the media side of it, and there's always a good tale to tell when Crusher is in town. But Kenny Habul, I'm afraid, off the road, and that is not the start to the weekend that he wanted. The session will not be resumed, so there is confirmation that that is it, because by the time everyone's gone back to the pits and the car's been retrieved, that'll be it. So a much interrupted session, but of greater concern is the damage done to 75 Mercedes. Kenny Habul out of the car, but then the impact was clearly a pretty hard one. So the session, as you say, is not going to be resumed. The cars now will make their way round to the pit lane, and of course anything a team was trying to get through in that really didn't come to very much, did it? Because the interruptions came frequently and always really at the wrong time. I suppose they got a reasonable first run, but the second and third elements to it were very short.
It's turned out to be a messy session. It's unfortunate. We've had 3 red flags. The final one has sealed the fate of this session. There's just under 5 minutes remaining, but that's not enough time there. We see again one of the recovery vehicles, but of course the scene of the incident is at the top of Radion, and that's the reason why the track has been red flagged, and everybody now comes back at a very stately 50 kilometers per hour, and you can see that's what 50 kilometers per hour looks like, with a long lens on a camera probably halfway up the hill towards La Source Happen.
And of course they will be doing this under the race at full course yellow conditions. So Kenny Habul's car off the road, causing the red flag, 35th in the times, but now giving the Sun Energy team work to do. And the field there you can see coming through the Cours Paul Frere the exit to the circuit underneath that section near the college, and the long queue heading to the pit lane. We touched on the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini a little earlier. Gemma has been on her toes and gone to ferret out Mark Lemmer, the team principal. Of course, they got a great strike rate in this race, Gemma, haven't they?
Mark, it's great to see you once again. Nice and calm coming into the weekend. What is it like for a team manager at this point? We've got qualifying tonight and a long way to go.
Yeah, there's a long way to go. But yeah, today's been a tough day for everyone, I think, with a lot of red flags. So we're all trying to work through our programs, 4 drivers in the car for Pro-Am. And so, yeah, this is making it quite challenging, but we're used to it, so we're all calm.
Well, keep that calm. We've got qualifying soon, and we look forward to seeing it. Thank you very much for talking to us.
No problem.
Mark Lemmer has been around the proverbial, hasn't he, a number of times. He has left here with class wins in this event. He's won championships in British GT, and of course a very handy racer himself in his time.
Yeah, and I think Mark epitomises what the whole ethos of the SRO series is about.
Yeah.
He runs a great team, great cars, and I mean, he brings, I think, an awful lot to the show.
I agree. So, at the end of pre-qualifying, this, for what it is worth, is the order. We know that there are some people that could have gone quicker. We know there are some cars that never cycled through all the drivers. But for the point of interest, then, Alex Malikin, Joel Stern, Marco Seefried and Klaus Bachler's Porsche the top time, with Enrique Chavez doing the best time in the number 188 Garage 59 McLaren ahead of the sister car, Nikolai Schiergaard at the wheel of it. 4th fastest, I think it was Alex Arca that did the time early on, ahead of Charlie Fagg, and then we had Julian Andlauer in 92 early in the session doing the time in the Grello Porsche. 7th was Thomas Laurent, Adam Ateki, Aurelien Panis and Alberto Di Folco's Audi ahead of Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper and Mirko Bortolotti. Bortolotti doing the time early on. Florian Scholzer with Kenneth Heyer, Patrick Assenheimer and Alex Peroni. 9th from Christopher Hauser, Gilles Magnus and Fred Verviche. Now, we've hardly touched on Audi. That has got to be a potential winning car. Hauser, Magnus, Verviche, the Come To You team. I put about €5 on that as a potential winner, I would have thought. Philip Eng, Marco Wittmann, Nick Yollerly. 11th ahead of Luca Engschler, Kelvin van der Linde and Nicky Teams Audi. That's another potential winning car. Rima Jafali, Ralph Aaron, Yannick Meckler and Alain Valente. Next from Sebastian Bode, Hubert Haupt, Arjun Maini and Jordan Love. And 15th, the DTM Rutronic team of Thomas Preining, Laurin Heinrich and Dennis Olsen, another IGTC car. In terms of the classes, well, 911 is the best of the bronzes. 159 is the best car in the gold competition. In pro, I should say. The 159 Garage 59 McLaren. 99 Audi, that comes out of the Attempto Racing stable, is the best of the silvers. And 78, the Barwell Lamborghini. You just heard from Mark Lemmer. That is the best of those in Pro-Am. Carrying on down to the times, it's like a who's who of GT racing. Everywhere you look, more names leap out. And not only from GT racing, but from single-seater racing, from Australian supercars. It's an absolutely outstanding entry. A long way down, another of the Porsches that you would anticipate to be quick in qualifying. 48, where Aisha Guven, Sven Müller and Christian Engelhardt. And the car at the foot of the times, Gerhard Watzinger, Caron Lee, Jean-Francois Bruno and Brendan Leach in the CrowdStrike Racing by Lippert Motorsport Lamborghini. That's another car that we know will go quicker. So, an interrupted pre-qualifying session. Whets your appetite, though, for qualifying. Let's have a quick look back at what went on in that interrupted session. Audis to the fore early on, and good lap times being posted by number 9, the VDS car of Thomas Laurent, Adam Ateki, Aurelien Panis and Alberto Di Folco. Good to have Bullet Racing back on the grid. Jeff Kingsley, along with Jacob Riegel, Romain Larue and Ruben Delsart with the only Aston Martin. A car-popping Rover Racing BMW early in the session, and then the gravel started to fly as Mercedes went rally crossing coming out of turn 9. It was the gravel on the road that brought the first red flag. But when we had the track live, 92 Porsche was hustling along. 911, though, was the fastest of all. Good effort being posted by Alex Malikin to get that car up to the top of the times. We had another stoppage after Naveen Rao went off the road again down at turn 9 as Nikolai Schiergaard hustled the 159 McLaren into contention, and then a final red flag after Kenny Habel went off the road. We'll be back in a couple of hours' time here at Spa for qualifying. Make sure you do not miss that. Bye for now.